Greetings, and welcome to the 5D Shift podcast with Openhand. It's where we take a higher dimensional, ascended master perspective of the tremendous changes happening on the planet right now in the shift. And specifically, we're looking at what's happening in the field, how that's transforming, and how that's then impacting life on the surface of the planet. And I'd like to look at how recent changes in the last few months especially have resulted in the election outcome that you've seen in the US. To be clear, this is not the cause of changes going on in the field. This is the effect of them. Let's take a look at the outcome of the election, what it might be telling us in terms of not a political standpoint. I'm not going to take one view or the other, but essentially what I'm encouraging and seeing as an emergence of greater freedom and sovereignty within society, which is the direct reflection of what's happening in the field, the work that's been going on in the field. Let's take a look at that. I'll be right back. Stay with me just a moment and let's get right into it. We've entered a pivotal moment in Earth's history. People in all walks of life are waking up and challenging the 3D shadow system. They're turning away from the fake stream, going inwards and igniting the passion of their soul. We're shifting consciousness into 5D. What does that mean exactly? How and when will it happen? Openhand is a higher dimensional ascended master consciousness working to illuminate the pathway forwards through the stormy transition. But this is never about telling you the truth. It's about offering essential insights into the shift, tools, meditations, and spiritual practice so you can realize your own truth. Because ascension to 5D is something only you can actualize for yourself. Get involved, explore, inquire, expand, liberate your soul. In recent times, the benevolent energies in the field, including the star being nations and what we can call the dragon nations, have been working to support and restore Gaia's Torus, her naturalness, which has been usurped, suppressed, and manipulated on the planet for aeons. We have, for example, worked with restoring her Torus through the heart chakra, removing old Anunnaki technology that had disrupted her consciousness, disrupted her Torus, disrupted her flower of life, separated higher from lower, thus making the lower more manipulative or being able to be manipulated. That's what we can say. And this has happened for aeons. This has happened for thousands of years. And we've seen these various groups. We've connected into these various groups that have been instrumental in that. For example, the old Anunnaki, who we experienced, explored with them, went through a split at their catastrophic transition back on Sirius 120 million years ago. It's set them on a trajectory of working to rebuild their civilizations on other planets in other constellations. They are master architects, master builders, and eventually they made their way to Earth, and they were instrumental in hybridizing original humans down to Homo sapiens. You can clearly see that some hybridization has happened in the transformation from 48 chromosomes in great apes and hominids down to 46. This is not a single step change, it's multiple simultaneous changes that were engineered to lock in speciation, a particular hybrid design. The evidence is abundant, it's clear, and sooner or later, people are going to start to ask, well, just exactly what is going on? Where is this influence really coming from? And what's happening in the field? So you have these very sophisticated, evolved beings, entities come from other planets, other constellations. They're working, for example, or have been working with the reptilians on Earth, who've been here long before humanity. Their DNA traveling on meteors through intentional panspermia. So we've had intervention energies for millions of years. And in recent times, what you've seen is an alliance of these energies. And we can go back to the Atlantean times when this happened, with the inception of Homo sapiens. Well, this has created a very manipulated and controlled simulation of perception, which people have been living in unknowingly, that these different perceptions are coming in through the field and influencing consciousness, influencing what people do, say, and think, influencing all levels of society, unseen, in the shadows, pulling the strings. This is what we need to be aware of. The perception is being pulled down across what we see, feel, experience. It's only when you extract out, when you stop being governed by the identity and the ego, that you expand into multidimensionality, you connect into the flower of life, and you can start to perceive these different influences coming in. Perceive them, then nullify them, eject them. But as you undertake that journey, you also become able to speak back to those influencing entities. And so this is what Openhand has been doing for some considerable time. We've been working with the star beings. We've been working recently, as I've said, with the dragon nations who've come to support the reanimation of the Torus, Gaia's Torus. We've been working with those groups, and we've been connecting into the intervention. And what do you do with them when you've connected with them? Well, how do you engage with them? Well, the crucial thing we must understand is not to judge, not to project, not to polarize, even though they have been responsible for some of the most challenging, difficult, heinous crimes that have gone on through history. Nevertheless, if we take a judgmental, projectional, polarizing viewpoint, all you do is perpetuate the us and them. All you do is perpetuate the struggle, the conflict, ultimately warring. And that's definitely what we wish to avoid, overcome, and really bring these beings back to the family of light. How is that done? Really, it's to empathize. Yes, not from a weak place, from a strong place, from a determined place, but to empathize with their waywardness. That in actual fact, when a being tries to control others, and en masse in society, really what's happening is they're controlling themselves. They're carrying the weight and the burden of holding things together. And when you manipulate, essentially you are manipulating your own consciousness. When you project fear, it shows that you are affected by fear. And so what we have done is engage with these various groups in meditation and reflected to them the impact and negativity that they're having on the planet and humanity. To be clear, what often has been the case, as with the Anunnaki, they have seen what they've been doing as supporting the civilization, as bringing greater sophistication, greater abundance, and technology that can support humanity in their view, in their vision of what society should look like, based on what it did look like. And yes, this is an ignorant, to a degree, point of view. It's arrogant as well, and without wanting to be judgmental and projectional, we have reflected this to those various groups. We did so with the reptilians. We showed them the degree of consumption that they've been destroying the environment by acting through humanity in the way they have, and the negative effect that's having on all sentient life. But we've also reflected what negative impact it's having on them. And we brought their draconian forefathers to bear within the dynamic. when they came in en masse some while ago, at least a couple of years ago. We worked with them to break down the leadership of the reptilians and start to reclaim them. Some of them are still here and they're working to realign. They're being helped to realign. They can reclaim, for example, more authentic, more aligned dragon energy. That's what they can become. And so there are still plenty that are wayward, yes, but the Draconians are here in support benevolently to reclaim them and to realign them. So that has been going on. That affected the base layer of the intervention simulation here on the planet. And then we engaged the Anunnaki, specifically the two kings, Enlil and Enki, who split, one of which had a more compassionate viewpoint, Enki, the other more controlling, less considerate, less empathic approach to humanity. So in bringing them back together, it was possible to reintegrate a more compassionate nature with that group, to show them their own pain, their own suffering that has caused this manipulation of different civilizations in the cosmos. We've shown them their legacy, that this is witnessed through the cosmos and in the Akashic record. It's not something you escape from. You can rewrite it by then undertaking aligned behavior and actions to support the emergence of consciousness. And we have reflected this to them, and that caused a healing to take place, and then an extraction of that group out of the simulation, out of the intervention. And that happened relatively recently. It began about a year ago, and it takes some while for the sense of grief, shame, and then healing to take place. I'm pleased to say that is happening, and now the Anunnaki have evolved into the Anu, and they are working actively on the planet to help extract 4D technology that they originally instigated and installed. So this is highly productive, highly successful. We're working at removing layer upon layer of this intervention. However, what we must understand as well is that there are plenty of layers to this, and a leopard doesn't change its spots overnight. We then encountered the lead or key entity behind this particular simulation construct on the planet, that being Ra, who tended to hide in the background with the other groups doing the work for him. Now, I'm calling Ra, yes, I understand that's likely to be triggering for some people, for plenty of people probably in spiritual mainstream, because he has been seen as providing great spiritual wisdom over the years, since Egyptian times, Atlantean times. He's regarded in providing spiritual wisdom to people and to society. Well, yes and no. The greatest deception is that closest to the truth. That is the problem. And Ra has been steering religion and spirituality in order to limit consciousness within the simulation, within the construct. This is what we became aware of, having worked and extracted out these other layers. We've seen how this entity is misshaping certain spiritual truths to lock consciousness in. For example, intentioning. Well, yes, we get a feeling sense of how the soul wants to move naturally from the Torus. We can say that's heartfelt intentioning. But when it becomes visioning from the identity, from the ego, something you particularly want because there's a sense of lack, there's a sense of poverty consciousness happening, because there is that, you're wanting, grasping, struggling for more in the simulation. That's the crucial thing to realize. You're struggling, efforting, and thereby bolstering the simulation is just another layer of it. It's just a quasi-spiritual layer of it. And this is what Ra has instigated, for example, to entrap many in the spiritual movement into bolstering the simulation that we've gotten embroiled within, that humanity has gotten embroiled within. Another one is all oneness. We are all oneness. And so the implication is we can just sit back and let it all happen. We don't have to work with anything. Well, this is an illusion too. The soul wants to animate and express. And so the invitation from the soul, from the orientation of being, is to animate, express authentically and to create authentically, in line though with the natural Torus flower of life. So yes, you're sitting back into the Torus, you are anchoring into the singularity, but then the flow is coming through you, and an aspect of soul, what we call at Openhand the Ray 3, is attuning to that like an antenna, picking it up and aligning us with it in terms of then witnessing signs, synchronicity, numerology, sacred geometry. You know then you're in the aligned, accurate flow. Now this is very different to having a vision and setting intention accordingly. In fact, it separates you from the Torus and from the origination of authentic soul. And this is what Ra is playing upon, preying upon. And another recent one that I've heard happening in alternative circles is that we don't need to reincarnate. This, I'm very concerned, is just another trap. The idea that you don't have to reincarnate, because reincarnation is the natural journey of the soul. You can imagine the Torus like being in a washing machine, and you have the singularity at the core, and you have a spin, and that projects out density, the dirty washing, which we can call karma. That's where the soul gets fragmented and attached into the drama of life. And that's the journey. That's the journey of learning, of evolution, of integration, of growth. And when you integrate karma, and at the end of a lifetime and the body-mind falls away, then the soul begins to ascend back to the source. But if you've still got karmic density, that weight, that baggage is like ballast on a balloon, and it holds you down in the fourth density. Now, when you do come into the angelic realm in the fourth density, you conduct a life review, or a life review happens. It's where you reflect upon what's been going on your journey, this past lifetime. You see the lessons that were possible to learn. You have an experience of being in the situation you were in, but also witnessing, observing it. You get an impression, a feeling of the effect you've had on others, and this will then steer the pathway for the next incarnation. So you get these remembrances, this journey of exploration and discovery happening in the angelic realm when the passing on is authentic and aligned, and that causes reincarnation to happen naturally until ultimately the being becomes enlightened. The soul is fully integrated, it's coherent, and incarnations are consciously chosen. You don't forget who you are, and you're choosing the nature of your incarnation. You have escaped the wheel of karma. You cannot, however, escape the wheel of karma by the intellect, intentionally. That's not possible. The soul is going to have its journey. So it's about aligning with the soul and allowing that to undertake the fullness of its journey. Yes, however, this is being complicated in the 4D by the entity Ra, who's established this false kingdom of heaven, so to speak, which is a bubble of collectivized consciousness which is sucking people in, sucking souls in through false love and light, false intentioning, through desire, ambition, need, greed, wanting to be some kind of identity or authority within society, whether it's spiritual, whether it's political or whatever. It's a temptation, it's an allurement to an unrealized soul toward this idea of a quasi kind of heaven backed by false angels, false ascended masters. That is happening. And then the karmic memory is being stripped from souls and they're being reinserted into the simulation. Yes, that's happening too. And we must work to avoid that. How? It's by knowing yourself, settling into, softening into the Torus, the singularity, not unity consciousness, not some, infinite consciousness. It's what precedes that. It's the pure presence that you're aiming for. And entities like Ra try to work to distract people from dropping into that pure presence, the one, the pre-manifest, the ultimate everything that, you can say everything that is, but it is pre-manifest. And so it's infinite potential. It's that pure sense of knowing self right in the background. There's no light, there's no dark, there's no color, there's no awareness. It's the surrendering into that completeness that we're talking about. That's the ultimate arrival at the presence, the source that you are. So there's lots of deceptions, not always intentional. It happens because souls haven't fully gone to the source within them, that singularity, that pure presence. They haven't gone that far. And they've been tempted into some kind of judgment, some kind of desire or need, some kind of polarity, us and them. When you always and only ever see the shadow is what you create. It's what you reanimate. It's what you reaffirm. And you as an identity in relation to it. That's why we must get past judgment, past polarization. And that's when we truly drop through identity and come into presence. And so this is a huge layer of deception that's going on still in the simulation. And we've worked to confront Ra on it and been very successful in the groups that we've worked with. We've undertaken a process you can call Absolution. It means turning into the constriction of your karma and courageously becoming intimate with it, no matter what the pain, no matter what the discomfort, equalizing with it, in which case it's like passing through the eye of a needle. You come through it as the one. You break down that illusion inside of you. It's a progressive journey of absolution across the 4D karmic plane. I like it crossing the 4D Red Sea. That's my metaphor for it. And so we've been encouraging groups to do this. We've been breaking down the very fabric that have held these manipulations, these illusions and distortions in place, like in various of the religions, for example. And that has greatly weakened the Ra entity. And so you've seen an opening of the field in recent times, the last year or two. Although it is important to say that entity, in my experience, through direct connection, is still quite resistant to what is going on, to the realignment, is still working to reconfigure things using tall, white, synthetic entities and AI to complicate, to create ever more drama in the simulation, in the 3D, through social media, through AI, through technology, so as to wrap consciousness in, is continually doing that to complicate the situation, to muddy the waters, and to maintain some degree of control. But that is weakening. We are seeing a breaking down of of that manipulation, because people are becoming increasingly determined about their own sovereignty and freedom. There is a strong wave of that happening through the field now. And to me, the US election is the direct effect of that, the direct result of it. And that's already happening in the field. Now, this is not the only dynamic. It is a complex one. Once we had started to undermine, diminish the strength of Ra, we encountered another group. This group is called the Council of Nine. Now, you will have seen channelings by the so-called self-appointed Council of Nine into this reality. And really, that's the power base that Ra has been calling upon. They have been instrumental in holding the fabric for many different civilizations in the cosmos. The Council of Nine came from the original Ascended Master group, and they had this view that they felt they ought to support the emergence of different civilizations and groups. Sounds benevolent. Provide resources, anchor the Torus so you could extract free energy from it, which many are talking about on the planet today, which caused the breakdown of the quantum field on Sirius 120 million years ago, something we need to be very careful about. But you have this group that has felt that it ought to involve itself in configuring and then ultimately, unintentionally, controlling different civilizations in different directions. And once you start on that route, the problem is it becomes a slippery slope. Where does benevolent intention become intervention? What is the difference when you are interfering with a reality and you're not then allowing the free sovereign choices to happen, even if that means the breakdown of the reality so a new one can establish? Destruction is construction when it contains the seeds of the future. They have not understood this. And so what's happened is, over time, in their name, but with them in the background, there have been greater and greater manipulations and control. Well, in recent times, we experienced them, especially as the Ra entity was weakening and diminishing. We experienced them come in and try to resume control. In the Openhand group on pilgrimage recently, particularly in the States, but also India, we became aware how the last-ditch attempts at lockdown and control, especially by the Ra entity, was using artificially amped technology to wreak havoc around the planet, particularly coming up to the all-important US election. And we were able to engage the energies, the background fabric of that consciousness, which was the Council of Nine. We were able to engage it and reflect to that council what is being done in their name, with their energy, with them in the background. Nevertheless, that this would go on and be recorded in the Akashic record as a reflection of their creation, their civilization. We reflected this to them, and this caused a crack and a split to take place within the Council of Nine. Some seeing their wayward errors and coming over to the light, others still resisting. What it meant was that we were able to open up through this technology, nullify it, open up through the intervention and nullify it, and to bring naturalness to bear. And that helped diminish the destructive impact of Helene and Milton as they came ashore, which would have been far more catastrophic had that not taken place. Now, I understand. You may say, you may think, wow, this is just fantastical. This is, how can you, this must be hard for someone to believe who doesn't understand yet that when you get beyond identity, first you come into the naturalness, the fractal, the torus that is you. You step beyond identity. But then also, because each torus is a part of a greater torus, of the earth, of the solar system, of the galaxy, then you can align with these movements of energy and consciousness, particularly the realigning consciousness. You bring your energies to bear within that realignment. It's like you become the spark for a collective action, a realigning action to happen. And so this is what took place by various members of the Openhand group who were able to bring their consciousness to bear, to draw in, to animate the naturalness in this place. We were greatly supported by dragon energies. So let's look at that for a moment too. Since the healing of Gaia's Torus by the removal of the Anunnaki technology, then the Torus was ready to gain much greater strength. That's when it made sense for the dragon energies to re-engage, to come and engage with this huge realignment, this huge journey of emergence and freedom going on. First in Tibet, the dragon ley lines, the deeply buried dragon ley lines were reanimated, reactivated, and that's rippling far and wide around the planet. It's also provided an anchoring so higher dimensional Lyran dragon energies can come in to instigate, animate the higher dimensional frequencies of the Torus. And you've got a convergence of these energies happening. You've got other dragon energies animating, involving too, including, for example, water dragon energies, which are also instrumental in smoothing the field. How does that work? We were on pilgrimage in the Himalayas in India recently when Typhoon Dana was coming in ashore onto the Indian coastline and predicted to wreak havoc as it did so. The instigation of water dragon energies slowed the typhoon as it came ashore and made it move up the shoreline for some 8 hours. That's unheard of. It reduced the effects as the typhoon came ashore. It gave plenty of people time to evacuate. This was a direct involvement of water dragon energy, showing that these huge changes, transformations in the weather patterns, many of which are natural due to the shift. It's not just all artificially amped up. Many of these changes, storms, earthquakes, volcanoes, are happening because of the shift. We must understand that too. And so these various energies that are coming in are helping the transformation of the field, but also working to steady it. And the water dragon energies were very much doing that. It's something we can each work with, especially in relationships, where you've got some difficult challenge between what you feel at a soul level to express and animate and the resistance, the pushback you might get in the field from people around you. Well, that energy helps you mediate through the sacrum on the emotional plane so you can make difficult, challenging, confrontational choices that won't necessarily be understood by those around you. Nevertheless, it's important to begin to express fully and in your sovereignty. So water dragon energies on the plane of emotions can greatly ease that process. And working at a planetary level, this is what we experienced in India. So it's really important to understand right now, there's a huge shift in the balance of power happening in the field on the planet. It's not about other energies coming in, like star beings or dragon nations, and taking over and usurping the freedom of the planet. Not at all. They have been soul contracted by the higher dimensionals, by the ascended masters, the real ones, to come here and level the playing field. The time has come where Gaia has signaled her intention to move on, having ended the contract, if you like, the soul contract. Yes, she had one, a karmic soul contract with the Matrix. She's signaled that she's concluded that, is ready, is moving on, and these various different groups have been soul contracted to support that emergence of freedom. That's what's been happening in the field. It's strong, it's powerful. There is resistance by the intervention. It keeps reconfiguring and keeps trying to muddy the waters, but nevertheless, we are having this tremendous breakthrough. The Council of Nine has been split. Half of the group have come back to the light, and some are still playing the field, trying to manipulate outcomes and situations. This is why I've been so intrigued as to what would be the outcome of the US election. Now, let me be clear. I'm not taking a political standpoint. I'm not saying that it should be one party over the other, or one party is right and one party is wrong. In fact, I haven't seen this election as being about politics at all, not in my mind. It's been about greater sovereignty and freedom, and that the expression, the emergence of that through the field would precipitate a particular outcome. It would favor that leader who would likely foster a greater window of opening of freedom and sovereignty to regular people. Now, based on past experience, you can say that the new president has definitely supported that in the past. Let's be clear, no one is perfect, no one is angelic, and it's not about saying this is a black and white situation. There are shades of grey. Yes, the corporate machine is still going to be involved in that new regime. Yes, the cronyism still exists. And this is what really encouraged me about RFK, the lifelong Democrat who couldn't get a platform with his own party, despite his heritage, despite his experience, despite what he was able to share and the compassion, the empathy, the understanding that he was able to bring to the table. They struggled tooth and nail to keep him off the ballot and keep him off the podium and to keep him out of the election. Why? Because his background, his experience is all about tackling big corporate cronyism involvement in government and the intelligence services too. The fact that he had the courage to step from one side of the house to the other and abandon the party of his forefathers and was embraced by the new president signals that there is an intention of an opening of, yes, clearing the swamp to some degree. Clearing the swamp to some degree. Now, no one is saying, I'm certainly not claiming that's all going to happen overnight. I'm not claiming that one side is right and one side is wrong. There are shades of grey, and we must understand that when we polarize, that, as I've said earlier, when all you see is the negative and don't focus on the positive, on the opportunity, then all you do is reinforce the shadow. All you do is reinforce the negativity. To me, this shows it is the effect of this tremendous opening in the field. And that, I believe, we should celebrate as Lightworkers. This is the surface effect of all of the tremendous work that Lightworkers have been doing over the time, over the decades, unseen, below the radar, often unrespected, often ridiculed, and yet had the courage to get on with the job and keep working. And the effect is, the wonderful effect is, you're seeing a breakdown in the field, you're seeing a realignment of these intervention groups. It's not all over by any stretch of the imagination, but in this election, to my mind and what I'm given to represent and express, you are seeing a clear result, a clear expression, a popular vote for more sovereignty, more freedom, less censorship, secure borders, less vote rigging that's been going on. And that creates stability. And this is one of the leading, if not the leading democracies on the planet. Probably, the one where democracy was really on the line until what's happened now. And To me, that's a bold statement has happened through the field to the intervention, no further. The intervention ends here. That over time the simulation will be broken down so that more freedom of emergence of soul can happen. It's not going to happen overnight. We must realize that what we have in the external, humanity is creating and projecting from the internal configurations of consciousness. You can't expect to change something on the external and have everything change if you haven't changed on the internal. The reason the simulation has existed is because of the handing over of sovereignty, the handing over of power, the handing over of your own sovereign choice, your own determination to express and be who you are. It's handing that over to another power or another system, or turning a blind eye in society because of what society offers as resources, working for it, and thereby suppressing the soul and not speaking honestly, acting honestly from the soul because of the carrot that's being dangled. We must be clear now in the shift that choices and our expressions, our alignments must come from the soul. And that is a sovereign choice for each and every one of us. And as more and more undertake that, that will be the causality of changing what happens on the surface. You don't change the surface and hope that you've changed the patterning and the dynamic without changing what's underneath. We must all now take responsibility for our own journey, our own path, empathically, compassionately for others, yes, but we must take responsibility for that and not delegate that to an external power. They serve us, not the other way around, and we must be sure about what we're undertaking there. Now, with this in mind, I'd like to undertake a meditation that helps reanimate the Torus in you and in your life. Now, it can only be a short example of the kinds of work we carry out. If you resonate, then come and get involved with the work of Openhand. Bring your attention to the breath, inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the mouth. And notice the felt sense at the back of the throat. This is a key chakra point. A chakra being a consciousness exchange point that connects into the singularity, the pure presence. You may feel a sense of connection, of centering, of anchoring, of belonging. Belonging to yourself, belonging to the fractal that is your Torus within the greater scheme of things. Develop a sense of calm around that, an eternal feeling sense to it. No matter what happens, by anchoring to this mast in the storm, enables you to mediate through life, no matter how turbulent. This is really the core of you. It exists and will continue to do so long after the body-mind has fallen away. Now, as you inhale, that singularity can expand up through the head, through the third eye. Again, a sense of opening, a sense of connection, a sense of belonging. And into and through the crown. And as you open out through the crown, the sense of openness, the sense of presence, the sense of infinite possibility. Now, this may cause some degree of anxiety when you're in the unknown. But if there is that sense of anxiety, then soften, relax into it. From the unknown comes all actions of alchemy, of magic, of possibility. It's that spark that can really transform your life in unknown, unpredictable ways, but positive, benevolent ways aligned with your Torus. Inhale up, expand through. Get comfortable then in the presence of the unknown. Now, as you do this, all manner of creativity will start to subtly cascade into your awareness. If you stay in the background of your experience, not just connected into the external, then all manner of possibility will cascade into your experience. But we must also work to anchor that through the being, otherwise it won't propagate. And so on the out breath, exhaling down through the throat and expanding through the throat. And then down into the high heart. This is where we connect into the twin flame aspect, the other aspect of you, the unmanifest, the other polarity of you which completes you. It isn't shaped in another being out there, it's a part of you, but reflected externally in life around you. And then down into the heart, connecting through the 4D karmic plane. Now this could be a bit turbulent. If karma is active, work to open and soften through it and relax into it. Feel that sense of connection and presence through the heart and then down through the solar plexus and into the lower chakras, the sacrum, and all the way down to the base, bringing those creative inspirations down through you. May just begin as energy. You may not even know what they're relating to, but it's the feeling sense of something inspirational that's going to change, transform your life in a very profound, positive way. That subtle sense, feeling is cascading down all the way through your being and into the base, and then down further into Gaia. Your fractal is a part of Gaia's, integrated at this time whilst you are on Earth with Gaia's Torus. So being a part of that helps us anchor heaven down to earth, so to speak. So exhaling right down through the base into the sense of connection with Gaia. And now on the in-breath, the sense of a spiraling up, a kind of oscillation. This is the Torus itself, an oscillating flow, a spiraling up and one down. This is active Kundalini. When you bring attention to that feeling sense up the core of you, up around the singularity, then you are animating the naturalness that is your soul ray harmonic, which then mediates out into life, bringing authenticity to your situations, circumstances, to your creative endeavors. Now, if you feel some kind of constriction, maybe around the throat, maybe that's because you're concerned about speaking up, speaking your mind, speaking your sovereignty. That's going to limit your capacity to animate, to actualize authentically. Well, then inhale up into the throat, expand through, open the space, and have trust, belief that if you express authentically, it is going to carry, it is going to mediate through the field. If you feel tightness in the solar plexus, maybe it's because of conditioning, programming, buying into external truths. You must come from your own truth. Inhale into the solar plexus. Expand, open through. On the emotional plane, sacrum, inhale in, expand through. Now you are in relationship with others who might still be limited by the illusion, by the simulation. And yes, it's essential to have compassion, empathy, and understanding, but not to the point that you negate your own journey. And then therefore establishing boundaries is really important. Caring, compassionate, empathic, yes. But this is your pathway. This is what's right for your own soul. So establishing that emotional boundary and animating authentically on the emotional plane. Inhale up. Exhale down. Now through the higher chakras, plenty of you tuning into this work, you're going to have connections with different star being nations. The Andromedans are very supportive right now. They're coming to stabilize the Torus, stabilize the field. So because of this activation of the Torus, there's some degree of instability. Well, they're here to help stabilize. And if you're having very strong changes in your life and around you, you can call on the Andromedans to hold that stability through sacred geometry. The dragon energies to help amplify strong, powerful, creative change. Andromedan to help stabilize. These are the kinds of dynamics we can be working with right now. These are what's becoming available to us as we transition through this multi-dimensional shift that we're a part of. And just finally, visualizing. Yes, it's okay to visualize a situation in your life which you know needs transforming, but not to try to visualize a particular outcome. Instead, see the situation. Where's the convolution? Can you work into that? Can you breathe into that to bring a greater degree of openness and harmony to it? See that possibility, working to let go of anxiety and fear, of change, of transformation. And now opening the possibility of some new approach, some new energies come to bear to transform the situation that are emergent from your own Torus, from your own soul. Open the space for that possibility, but don't limit it by telling it what the outcome should be. You're not that small. You're not identified in that way. You don't have to be. Flow can happen. Flow can transform anything, even hurricanes. Trust now in right action and then right outcome. So in conclusion then, I feel like the outcome of the US election is something we can all be deeply encouraged by. Whether you're from one political party or another, or you have a particular political standpoint, to me it was not about politics. It was about the liberation of the human spirit from censorship, from control, from manipulation. Even degenderization was going on. We're seeing a pushback against that, against cronyism by big corporations. And this is all the effect of the breakdown of the intervention going on in the field. You have to see that these surface layers have been pulled, the strings have been pulled by these background underlying layers of intervention for thousands of years. And we have been incredibly effective at breaking those down. And that is to the great credit of unseen, off the radar light workers around the planet, just like you tuning in now. We can all be greatly encouraged by that what's going on here. And that is the bellwether, the populist vote for how life wants to move forward and be free and sovereign, and to break away from all of these different manipulations and interventions going on. It's not a perfect outcome. The two-party state never will be that. But it's a progression in the right direction. You can see, feel, sense in the field around you a real degree of accomplishment and excitement, not for a particular winner or outcome, but because the field is opening up, and this is the reflection of that. That's how I encourage all to see it, to take real optimism and encouragement from it. How? To be more sovereign in your life, to take the truth from inside of you, from your own sovereign being, from your own Torus. That, to me, is what this outcome is reflecting. It is not perfect. It is not the end of the shadow, but it is the beginning of the end, to my mind. And so we can be encouraged, and this is going to happen progressively now, step by step, as we go forward to the culmination of the shift. So don't expect it all to change like that overnight. It's going to happen progressively as the veils are pulled away and the light gets in more strongly, and we feel that emergence, that upliftment as we head into the new paradigm, or those who are preparing for it, those who are readying for that shift. You must be doing that work now, and the inner integrations of soul in order to join the golden age of the new earth. That is coming for those who do the inner work. This is a huge encouragement. It's a huge opening up. It shows how effective the infusion, the support of the star being nations and the dragon energies have been. They come here to level the playing field, not to take over, but to establish a greater possibility of freedom. That for me is this bellwether that's taken place recently. It's the effect of much work that's been going on in the field over thousands of years, and we can quietly celebrate, I do believe. I wish you well. See you down the flow. Namaste. Been inspired? Then get involved with the revolutionary work of Openhand. Join us on seminars and retreats, online and terrestrial, for groundbreaking meditations, illuminating self-realizations, and plenty of fun. It's all supporting the great planetary shift to 5D consciousness. Join kindred spirits today. Visit openhandweb.org.